lost that top bar somehow. I cannot really, wow. Can you see my screen still?
Yeah, but I'm seeing probably the second screen. I'm seeing just your wallpaper.
Yeah. So this one.
Yeah. Now I'm seeing ChatGPT. The deck.
I'm intentionally not showing. So you see that, I somehow lost the Zoom panel. So I don't see anything from Zoom except the faces. How do I stop the screen sharing? Wow. Okay, Zoom. About, no. Do we see people joining?
Yeah, there's already our first attendees joining in.
Okay, so we are on the right session. Good. Let me put these into the slideshow. And let's wait for people. Oh, I cannot mute. Oh, I can't mute my microphone. So feel free to begin it. It's okay that people will join. I will start slow.
Yeah, let's wait just 2 more minutes before you start, because maybe some people want to join exactly on 5.
Sure.
Hi, Ansuman, Aditya, welcome. We're gonna wait for a few more people to join in, and then we'll start. Hi, everyone who's just joining in. We're gonna wait 1 more minute to give everyone an opportunity to join in time. So bear with us. We're gonna begin very shortly.
Udi, if at the end we will have enough time for a Q&A session, since I lost the chat and other parts of Zoom screen, I will need your help in reading questions if we will have any.
Absolutely. The first lesson in open source is collaboration. Welcome, Pritam, Yash, Dorit. Okay, I think we're 2 minutes in. I think we can start. And like Andrei said, we'll start slow. So people who will join in midway won't find it too hard to pick up the pace. So welcome everyone to our very first beginner webinar. We're doing a lot of webinars about DevOps tools and methodologies. And now we wanted to do something really dedicated for you folks who want to kickstart your career or your journey as developers. And open source is really the best place to start. And you have the best guide with you today, Andrei, who will take it over in just a minute. He will humbly describe himself as just an open source guy, but he really is a top engineer with years of experience, both in open source and in enterprises. He worked at Blazemeter and App9. He is the developer behind Helm Dashboard, our most recent and most successful open source project, and that I'm sure you've heard about in our community more than once. So just a few housekeeping rules. Andrei will take over and guide us through the first steps in the open source journey. If you have any questions, so please drop them below. You can leave them in the Q&A, and then if we have time at the end, we'll address all those questions. We will share the recording and the deck with everyone here, so no worries. You can always review and take notes. And finally, if you haven't yet, join our Slack community and feel free to ask questions directly from Andrei or anyone from the team or community members. This is really the way to learn, not just being a passive listener, but taking action, engaging with people, asking questions, learning more. So you're taking your first steps now, and I invite you to keep walking with us along those journey, and we will produce more and more content like this for you to build up your skills, and more importantly, the right mindset that's needed to be a successful engineer or open source developer. So without further ado, Andrei, take it away, please.
Thank you, Woody. Welcome, everyone. And today we will talk about learning to contribute to open source. Why we are holding this talk is because we saw many messages in our community from people coming and asking, how do I start contributing? And it seems that people are really beginner level. And instead of doing advanced technology and DevOps, I decided to start with some basics where I, as maintainer of open sources, will share how maintainers perceive the contributors coming in, and I will share my insights on how to be more successful with your contributions and how to build up your contribution profile with the right mindset, as Udi said. I don't know if I'll be able to show any practical things. That will be a sort of improvisation. Not sure if it will happen, but I really think you need to know these theoretical parts of contributing. So my plan roughly is to remind you about what is open source, tell you how it affects career from my understanding and my experience, tell you what you need to know to start contributing, how do you do that, different aspects, what you do, what you not do, and hopefully we will have some time for Q&A. If not, we always have a community where we can just interact with each other, and you can ask your questions there, and hopefully your questions will improve in quality after you saw this talk. So who am I? Why you should listen to me? I'm doing open source development since 2009. I made a lot of projects with different popularity over these years, like JMeter plugins. This is where I started as open source. Then I was doing the Taurus project for Blazemeter, Macintosh for App9. I was doing funny project of robots built from Lego, and I'm still maintaining that project. I was doing chess engine, playing neural network, AI, just for fun. And recently I was building the Helm Dashboard project for Komodor, which is a great success, really turned out to be a helpful tool, and people like it. And I have many more other kinds of contributions, like reporting bugs, writing articles, providing feedback to open source projects. So you can see my tag on YouTube. You can find some of my presentations, because I'm also speaking publicly in many different presentations. You can find other interesting talks, including open source and technologies, on my YouTube. For your comfort, we will involve Kunal virtually, but he will appear in this presentation because many of you have came to this community thanks to Kunal. What is open source? Open source is an idea that you can actually do something and then give it away for free, give the idea, the implementation of it for free, and the software allows this sharing easily. It has transformed the industry over the last 20 years. So we now can quickly evolve the technologies because people collaborate, they bring quick feedback, so everything speeds up and improves. It has changed the consumer behavior of engineers in a way that now the engineers are used to try things before they commit to something, before they pay money or involve anyone from procurement. So they just used to take something that is open source, try it, start using it gradually. So it's not anymore something that you need to buy first and then maybe it works for you. No, the behavior has changed completely. It has also changed the software buying process when now any vendors and people involved in commercial software, they all have this requirement of vendors to contribute to open source. So nobody likes closed solutions and nobody likes the companies that have no public open source profile. People like when they can see that engineers of the company actually are present and available directly through the open sources, and it's much more trust to those companies. And it has enabled people to learn IT faster and earlier. So many people can now join the high-tech industry and start building their career through open source. What I assume is that in the audience here, we have a lot of people who want either to build their career based on open source or want to improve their career with the help of open source. And we have a typical problem that is a problem of junior. Nobody wants to hire juniors. Nobody's excited about juniors. So how do junior get experience if nobody wants to hire? It's like the endless loop. And open source is an answer to those problems because this is where junior can find a lot of practice. It's through open source, through contributions, and basically the fact that you don't need to ask anybody permission to do any technology and development. And from my experience, open source basically transformed my career over time, and everything I have right now is thanks to open source. And I can tell you that it can lead you to a good job, it can change your life, but it won't be that fast. So don't think that you will make your first contribution or 10th contribution, and then you will get magically a job in the United States and everything will change. It's a rare case. You need to have patience, you need to be persistent, but if you are persistent and you have invested a lot of time, it will change your life, it will improve your career. It's marathon, it's not a sprint. So think strategically, approach this strategically, be ready to invest some time. Well, if I remember myself being a 20-year-old student in university, I was spending nights without sleep, just digging into some of my own ideas and trying to apply my brain to build something. So it's normal to learn and spend a lot of time learning. And let's see how can we make your process of learning more guided. Somebody may say that there is a secret ingredient and you just need to subscribe to the right channel, like it, watch the videos, read the blogs and articles, and ask the questions from some expert, and talk to ChatGPT, and it will solve all of those problems for you. I will say no. Those are not the things that make you the open source contributor. The things that make you open source contributor is ability to work independently without talking to anybody, solve the problems, bring in solutions. You need a lot of patience because you will need to interact to people, and you will need a lot of practice to make sure that what you bring as open source contributor actually is of a good quality. Now we need to cross the chasm, because the way I understand the situation is an average person in the audience is an engineer or a student rather, who wants to become a contributor, and there's a gap between these two points. And it's time for Kunal to step in. And this is what he said once in our Slack community. You need to learn some skills, find a project, contribute, and repeat. It sounds amazing. The only problem that exists here is that it's too broad. We need to add some more detail into this simple recipe, which is true. So this is our situation. I'm totally new and I want to become an open source contributor. So the method that I will suggest you to learn from here is reverse mapping of your learning. How you build reverse path from where you want to be to the place where you are right now. It's a subset of mind mapping techniques. What you do is you take the place where you want to be, and then you start building what would it mean to be there. And the first level of that would be to learn to communicate, learn the technology, find a project to contribute, and maybe learn some non-code contribution skills to enable the contribution. Then the trick is to build the second layer. For example, the communication. We need to learn about open source culture to be meaningful and do right things when we come with contributions. We would also need to improve our learning English skills because most of the communication would happen in English. Next step, to build our English skills, we probably would like to search for some English course. I mean, YouTube free courses, whatever sources that you can find. It's also good to learn to use Google Translate. And recently we have this amazing tool of ChatGPT where you can also come and start asking language related questions, discussing with it different situation and use it basically as your English teacher, helping you to improve your language. Now, there is some technology to learn, and technology would mean to master GitHub with its basics, to learn programming and DevOps. With GitHub, you would need to learn Git, because GitHub is built on top of Git. You will need to learn to build pull requests. Let's continue. To learn programming, you would need some IDE, development environment, the program where you write the code. You would need to learn algorithms, maybe databases. We can improve and increase all of these. We can personalize this. For DevOps, for example, you need to learn what the cloud technologies is today, what is Kubernetes, and Linux is a must to know for today's world. For Kubernetes, you might start learning from Docker what are those containers that are running inside Kubernetes orchestrating. Now let's go more towards finding the right project. To find the right project, you need to know your tech stack, your skills and capabilities. For that, you need to learn the programming or know the programming. And there's also domain area in which you will be looking the project. Finally, if you are looking for non-code contributions and you want to spend less time in technology, this is your personal preference, you would also need to learn public speaking, maybe tech writing, which needs domain area. We could connect tech writing to English skills in this map. So this is the picture, and this is the picture that I have imagined for some person to build his path to learn technologies. And now it's much more concrete. We know that we need to learn Docker. We need to know that we need some IDE and maybe databases. We can improve and detail further the path, and that path all grows from being open source contributor. And in today's presentation down the road, I will be using bits of these things to give you a hint of on what or how you should learn different places. You can already see that it's maybe a year worth of content detailing each of these pieces, and each of you would have his own path through the map. Build your own map. I suggest you to do this exercise. It will really, really help you to understand concrete things to learn, and it's not inconcrete and vague. Next thing to understand is the open source mindset. You need to understand how to operate to be normal open source contributor or participant of the open source ecosystem. Open source is not about what you code, because commercial companies also write the code. It's about how you share it. Do you allow others to know about it? Do you tell them about it? Do you help them to use it? Do you support what you has published? Do you allow to use it in commercial software? In open source world, project is more important than personalities. If somebody, even a maintainer, has personal problems, for example, he do not want to work on project anymore, the project is more important than maintainer even. So people can fork his work or ask for him to pass the maintainer role, and he will be, most likely, he will be happy to do so. And the project should live the life if there are users for the project. The community is more important than individuals. So if individuals have their problems, they argue, they don't know how to communicate to each other, the whole community should not suffer from that. So individuals should put away their personal ego, including maintainers, everyone, and they should value the community and the big crowd of people gathering around the project. And one more important thing to understand is that people work for project at their will. So at some moment, they might not work on the project because this is their life situation. They may be on vacation, or they may be in the hospital for a couple of months because of something bad has happened, or they may have personal problems. You need to respect that when you go and interact with people, and it's a part of open source mindset. We are all volunteers here, so you cannot force anybody to do anything in open source. You need to argue, you need to convince. So first thing that we need, first big branch of our learning map that we want to dig into is how do we communicate? As I said, open source is not about writing the code. It's about exchanging the code. It's about interacting with people and sharing. Let's first understand who is involved in this process, who you will be talking to. Open source is a social phenomenon. You have to deal with people, and you need to understand what these people need to communicate better, to convey your messages better, to understand the other party better. For example, maintainer, what does he need? Maintainer wants project to become popular. He wants to maintain the original idea of the project so it will be going according to the master plan. And he desperately needs help in some routine tasks like fixing bugs, sorting through stuff, writing documentation, a lot of those. You may be talking to other contributors, and they would like their contribution to be accepted, and for that they would like it to be tested, bugs reported, code reviewed, opinion and feedback shared. So they will have feedback, they will improve their contribution, and will help project to improve. And you may be also interacting in different communication channels with the users of the project. And the users of project, they need to help getting started with the project. They want to use it. They want the bugs that they find to be resolved. They want to overcome the difficulties. So you can also be interacting with them and helping them in achieving their goals, and at least respecting their situation. They are less experienced. They may be not knowing the internals and programming of the project. Nevertheless, they are part of the community around the project, and they need special kind of help addressed on them. And you also need to understand that there are interests of commercial companies around the project. So you may see people from particular commercial companies, maybe even sponsors of the project appearing here and there. You need to respect the interests of those commercial companies. Why? Because these companies actually pay salaries of people doing contributions daily. These companies they commercialize the open source software, so it becomes really popular. They spread the information, they sponsor webinars, meetups, and conferences. Without the commercial companies, open source would die. And if you look at the open source project that doesn't have any commercial company interest around it, maybe indirectly, that open source project usually doesn't go anywhere far. So you need to keep in mind that there can be good collaboration between commercial companies and open source software. And if it's healthy, it will be beneficial for everyone. Communication is the key. So the first and foremost thing that I want everyone to know is keep it all public. Don't come to my private Slack. Don't come to anyone's private Slack, private email and ask for help or to answer the question. And it's not because I'm a bad or rude person. No, I'm all right. But if I'm answering you in a private channel, in one-to-one message, I'm helping one person. I don't want that. I want to help 100 person, 1,000 person. And for that, I need the communication to happen in public. So you asking me a question, I'm answering you, and other people are seeing, reading your question, understanding how it applies to them and how my response applies to them, assuming you are asking right question, which we will discuss later in this presentation also. If somebody has helped you, answered your question, showed you the solution, always confirm that it worked for you or did not work for you, or you did not try. Give any feedback, because otherwise we are breaking the first rules of community more important than personalities or individuals. You want the community to see this feedback that there was a solution and it worked or did not work. Otherwise, we have broken communication channels and it makes communities to suffer, basically. We're losing information in the private chats. We're losing information when people do not speak. They got their response and went away instead of just saying to community, this is the right solution. Please respect people when they are on weekend, off hours, some vacation, sick leave. You have no idea which kind of situation has happened. So when you are starting to jump into every channel and asking, what about it? Please review my pull request. Why don't you respond to my question? Why this? Why that? Please calm down. Open source is not commercial, internal communication of the company when you can demand something. Be respectful and wait. People will see your messages. You can wait for several days and only then re-ask, because that's the appropriate time. And rely on automated notifications, because GitHub, other systems, they notify people involved that the pull request has been created, the message has been sent into pull request, the maintainers and participants, they all see all of that. And what Kunal says on that, why you're spamming, don't send the same message into multiple channels. If you send it to one channel and you then realize that it's the other channel where you should write it, delete the first message, send it into other channel, it's okay. Better don't send at all into two channels, I mean. Choose once and take your time. Think about what you post before, and then there will be less chance for a mistake. Now let's speak about the English, because I know I experienced that in my past. In that 2009, I didn't know English well. I was very poor, and I was building over time my English skills. The rule is don't rush, with your posts. If you're trying to write something down, use the tools. The tool that I prefer to use is Google Translate. And let's have some practice. Let's open Google Translate. And this is how I use it. So let's say I want to write something and my native language is Portuguese. So instead of writing in Portuguese and translating, the right way is to write in English, because I want to improve my English skill. I will be writing in English, and then I will be looking at how Google Translate transforms my text into my native language, in this case, Portuguese. And if I'm okay, if the meaning matches my intuition and expectation. So let's say I'm talking to audience in a webinar. Estou conversando com o público em webinar. Not bad, not bad. I think it's okay. To validate that it's truly doing it well, let's create another tab and let's ask it to translate the other way around. Well, the phrase is too simple, and in an online webinar. Still not good. About software technology. Okay, now I'm taking this text and I'm making sure that if I'm translating it, I'm talking to the online webinar on software technology. So this double translation makes sure that I really fully understand what happens with my English text, that it's basically really, really well translated. And because I'm writing English, I'm training my English skill. And the second part of this thing is the ChatGPT. And ChatGPT is, you may argue if it's good or bad for the newbies. I should say you can use it responsibly. You can learn a lot from it. I like this tool. It's great. You just should not use it blindly without learning. So what you should do is, again, you should create your first phrase and then go and ask ChatGPT if the phrase was good. And also, let's review that. So you use this prompt and you open ChatGPT. Let's increase the font. And then you say, please verify English correctness in the following text. I'm speaking in should be wrong. A webinar about software technology. And ChatGPT would think I am giving presentations. So yeah, I am giving presentation in a webinar on software technology. So it changes the articles, but don't stop here. Start asking questions. Why should I use a article in that phrase? And it will start explaining you some bits of English. Oh, it's in a webinar. Instead of in. So it gives me some more context. This is the power of this tool. If you start talking with it like an English teacher, it will give you more and more knowledge. And the key is, again, what does it mean to use it responsibly? It means that you should not just offload into it your English text. No, don't do that. Try to create English phrases that I was using phrases today to test that, and it was just saying, okay, you're writing it correctly. That's fine. This is when your English is fine, when it doesn't rephrase it. Improve your English skills. Now, communication channels. There can be several communication channels. Some projects even have multiple communication channels used, and you should learn how to use those channels appropriately. For example, we know Slack We know that there can be forums and GitHub issues and pull requests. There can be mailing lists. They still exist until now. Like JMeter plugins project has mailing lists. So what are the rules? For mailing lists, you need to reply to list instead of private. So don't diverge communication into private channels. This is newbie mistake when people, again, stop exposing the conversation to the public. Keep the conversation threaded. Don't hijack the threads. It applies to mailing lists and to forums. Search through the history before asking the question. Hijacking thread means that you are finding some thread from the past, and then you ask your question inside that thread, and your question is not related to that thread. It's actually a new question. Don't do that. Why? Because you will annoy everyone participating, and they will not want to respond to you because you are misbehaving. Nobody likes rude people. Nobody likes misbehaving people. So please respect the community and the rules. Inside GitHub issues and pull requests, the best rule is to search existing closed issues, closed pull requests, to not duplicate yourself, and be more elaborate on what your problem is. We will address that in asking the right questions. Inside chat technologies, Slack and Discord, you need to write the proper channels. Find the proper channel. Use threads. Group the communication and group the conversations inside the thread, even if you are replying to your own message, because it creates a culture like forum culture of thread or mailing list threads. And it's easier to communicate and understand the context, unlike the channel where everyone just dump everything. Don't alert channel. For example, we can find an anti-pattern for that in today's general messages of Komodor community. When somebody jumps in and references a channel of 2,000 people, and 2,000 people get notified about somebody jumping and saying, hey, I joined the community. Is your message really worth disruption of those people? Don't do that, please. Finally, each communication channel usually offers some formatting like code snippet, screenshot inclusion, citations, replies. Use those properly, because it's really hard to deal with screenshot of a source code instead of code snippet, and it's really hard to read the textual explanation of a UI situation as opposed to just having a screenshot illustrating that. Use those, learn to use those. And Kunal says, not the right channel, you're not writing to the right channel, please write into the right channel. And you can see that he's really, really consistent on telling you, please guys, use the right channel. We have a special channel to introduce yourself. We have special channels for many other things. And still people break those rules. Now, how do you ask the right question? This is one of the biggest problems, because I see people coming again and again with the same question into our community, which is basically useless. They're asking the question, then they're waiting for the response, and response does not come. Why? Because the question was answered many times before, because the question is generally can be Googled as opposed to asking to this community. It's not unique. So how to avoid that? Before you ask the question, make sure that it's really related to the context, related to the project, if it's in the context of the open source project. Because otherwise, if you are asking inside one project for help with the other tool, completely different, it's meaningless. You should go and ask in that tool. Search in existing issues, posts, maybe search it through the source code to understand if this question was answered or has existing answer from the past. Search in Google, talk to ChatGPT, Make sure that you understand your problem and at least roughly understand the context of your problem better, that it's really unique. It's not something, how do I contribute to open source? If you ask Google, how do I contribute to open source? You will get a ton of guides. And many people spend many hours on that. So why should I discard the job of all those people and do my own answer to that question? No, it's a waste of time. It's a waste of my time. It's a waste of your time. Just go and learn. Let me add something on top of the existing knowledge. Then, if you still understand that your problem is somehow unique, be concrete with your question. The question of how do I contribute to open source is too vague. It's too unconcrete. You need to be much more concrete in your questions, like which source code control system does this project use? Which style of the brackets this project prefers? Will the project like if I contribute this feature specifically, not any feature? And then the conversation becomes meaningful. The best thing, the thing that will make you the king of contributions, is that instead of asking the question, you will bring the draft solution. When your question will actually say, hey, I have a problem and I solved it like this. Is it correct? Can you give me some feedback on it? And then you will have a lot of attention because the solution is really interesting, as opposed to inconcrete question. Finally, give enough context, sufficient to understand and reproduce. Google how to write good bug report. There's a ton of guidance on how do you create the good bug reports, and just go and read it all. It's for ages, for decades, I'm seeing this problem of how to report problems effectively, efficiently, and it still repeats and repeats. It's a junior mistake. Don't do that junior mistake. Learn what does it mean to report properly. And Kunal says, incomplete questions do not get responses. No one knows what the error you faced you didn't tell, and all of those jokes. And he's a positive guy, but he's also trying to help people, and he repeats and repeats, and I repeat and repeat the same guidance. Please be concrete, be meaningful, and only then ask the question. Now the communication, we discussed that. A lot of things to learn in the communication area. How do you find a project where you contribute? This is actually a very big and strategic thing. It was, now when I look back, I understand that when I was choosing my project to start or to contribute to, it was very impactful on my career because I was actually doing that over years. I have 3-step suggestion for you. First, choose the domain area. It's not the technology, it's the area where you work. Is it finance? Is it technology? Is it DevOps tools? Is it performance testing like it was in my past? Is it JavaScript libraries? Is it machine learning? Is it robots? And when you choose this domain area, the best thing, the very best thing is when it relates to your job. If you have a job and you have problems in your daily life, then you understand them well, and then you can find a project that applies to your job and contribute to that project, and you would understand it well, you will do right thing. If you don't have any job, you don't have anything, you don't know anything, try to look around and find something that interests you. Try to use some technologies, some tools, some projects. Do you like machine learning? Do you like graphics, visualization, building graphs? Do you like math? Do you like, I don't know, performance testing in my case? Find that something that makes you excited, because it's very strategic. It's like a marriage. If you do a mistake there, you will suffer the years after. Second thing that you need to consider is the tech stack. Your skills, it's rather not tech stack, but the skill set. Your skills should allow you to contribute and be meaningful. You should either already have the skills to contribute, or you should be willing to invest in skills that are needed. When I was starting JMeter plugins, I did not know Java at all. But I was young, I was willing to learn, and I was motivated by my job to do performance testing. So I started to learn Java step by step, and then I became a capable Java developer over several years. And this is how I invested in skills that were contributing to the open source. And third thing to consider is when you finally narrowing down your search of the project, think of how healthy and what is the likeliness of success for your contributions in general. Because I don't want you to come, bring something into the project and get discarded, rejected, and then demotivated. No. So let's be real and estimate our chances. It's usually easier to get contributions into new projects. They are more alive, healthy, they are willing to get new contributors, and they're generally more friendly. Small projects, as opposed to large projects, are more agile and easy to contribute to. And the large projects may be more fame and respect when you contribute to those, but it's also much, much harder. You will get rejects because of the code style. You need to write thousands of unit tests, documentation, and also you need to go through legal process of checking that you are allowing your work to be incorporated, something like that. So assess the health. Maybe the project is even dead and not maintained, and why to try to fix anything there if nobody uses that project, nobody likes that. So that's important step to consider the contributions. Let's now jump out of the presentation and look at those. There is a good website called Good First Issue, which we can review. So this is the website where they gather the good first issues from many, many different projects. How do I find something? Let's say I don't have a project that would appeal to me. I don't have a job. I'm a student. I have good Python knowledge, and I have, let's say no Python. Let's say Go. I like Golang recently, because this is truth. I like Golang. I used to write in Java, then in Python. Now I'm writing in Golang, and I really like the technology. And I'm looking at how many stars the project have, and what is the last activity, because I don't want dead projects, and I don't want too popular projects. So my goal would be to find a project of several hundred stars, something Gopher game server, feature packed game server. I'm not really in the mood of game servers. This is, I'm speaking aloud for you, my thought process. 48,000 stars, I don't like that. Too much, too big. 5 stars, blockchain. It's something about blockchain. I'm not really a blockchain guy. JX, too many stars. Something small, guys, please. Something really small. This is another problem of the small projects. They are not filing themselves into these kind of systems. Okay, we can settle with something smaller. Backup and migrate Kubernetes applications and their persistent volumes. This is actually, I like that. And they have 10 issues. Display which plugins are mandatory and can't be removed. Throttling request errors. This is, I'll probably open that and I read the context of it. So to update on server defaults, that's something not really interesting. Code cleanup, that's fine. That may be easy for me as a contributor. Running into like GoSeg finds a bunch of unhandled error and then other red flags in the code. So this one looks really good and really good first issue. So we can run this GoSeg or Golang CI lint, and we can contribute it. And maybe many people were coming and asking to assign it, but nothing much has happened. So there's opportunity. Oh, somebody has contributed something in the context of it, but it's still open for contribution. So this is roughly how we find it. Another way is you go to GitHub top page, you take issues section, you say not my issues, but actually label good first issue, and you search through all GitHub for those issues, and you can find a ton of ideas here where you can go and contribute 10,000 pages of those issues. So don't say that you have no projects to contribute to. A lot of them, you just need to find those that will appeal to you personally. There's a caveat, which I will mention slightly later. Now, assuming you have found the project that you want to contribute to, now we are coming to the main part of the contribution process. And first thing is, what do you contribute? You can take and contribute, again, if you have existing job and you experience existing pay and you found the open source project that belongs to your domain area of your job, just take your pain, solve it in the project, contribute back the solution. This is the most organic thing. To evidence you the thing, this morning I was receiving the pull request. The pull request, it was inside my closed pull request. Oh, yes. Let's see. Let me find the JMeter plugins, and this morning I got the pull request. Really illustrative. Suddenly somebody decided to change the plugin that it wasn't changed for, I don't know, maybe 10 years. But the guy has brought some, a feature, a simple feature, and he brought single line change. It's meaningful. He needs that for his job, and I'm fine with that. I only asked him to add documentation so other people will be able to know about this feature. And we're good. I merged the pull request, I released the new version, and this plugin suddenly got a contribution and an update. First time in 10 years, maybe. This is really good example. Unlikely that he randomly decided to implement this feature. Most likely it comes from his daily job. And this is the most organic and healthy contribution that is possible. But if you don't have that, again, assuming you're a student and you don't have idea, look through the issue tracking of the existing bugs and features, and we saw those issues a minute ago. Search it to-do items in the code. This is actually a funny source of really meaningful code context problems that you can solve. Those to-do items. If I used to write those to-do items or fix me items in my code a lot. So if you would search through the code of my code, you will find many places where something can be improved. I just didn't have time to do so, but I documented the intent. You can also run linter tools like in that issue that we saw before. You can look at the unit test coverage report, and it will be a great source of cheap contribution. And we had some of these contributions of unit tests in the past for Helm dashboard project, for example, when people were bringing in unit tests and covering it more and more and more, and we need more basically. If you want, you can come and contribute the unit test coverage. The main rule here is, if you see the problem to be solved, make sure it's reported and better fix it. You see the misprint in the text of documentation, change it. You see the failing or insufficient unit test, try to do it. You see the linter output complaining, improve it. And then step by step, you will be building up your contribution profile. I don't want to go too deep into this. How do you contribute in GitHub? Because it's complex, it consists from many steps, and there's a ton of guides online. Again, I don't want to repeat all of that. Roughly, it looks like you do fork the repository that you want to contribute from. You clone it locally, you pull the latest changes to make sure you are on latest, you create new feature branch from main, you commit your changes into your local feature branch, then you push into your fork, and then you create a pull request in GitHub, and you link in corresponding issues describing everything, and you start interacting with maintainers. But first, what I suggest you to do is to review it yourself. Does your title look well? Is description look fine? Does div contain unnecessary changes? Does the project CI break after your change? You will need to do that before maintainers wake up and get involved. And then maintainers will let you know if it's good or not. And you repeat steps 3 and 4. You do changes, commit into local branch, then push into your fork. And they appear as part of your pull requests automatically. You do that several times, and hopefully you get your contribution accepted if you have enough patience and persistency. What not to do. As a maintainer of multiple open source projects, I can tell you what to not do if you want to increase the chance of the contribution. You should double check if your contribution has unrelated changes. Do not reformat the code of the half of the project, and do not try to commit that. Do not change the import structure, reorder things if it's not actually the meaning of your pull request. Just keep your changes minimal. Why? Because I'm, as a maintainer, I have not much time to review your contribution, and I want it to be really obvious and simple. Don't push into your fork's main branch, because it creates a chaos for you and for maintainer when we try to review. Then you are unable to merge the changes from the upstream. Everything is broken. You need to do force pushes. Just don't do that. The feature branches, per feature branches, is must have. You must use that absolutely. Don't mix refactorings and features. Sometimes you see that the structure of the code is not good, and you start extracting in existing code the functions, something like that, and you also implement the features along the way. It's super hard to review those, so just separate it. Either do refactoring as a separate pull request, or do refactoring as a separate request later, but don't mix that together. Respect the project tradition, history, layout, code style, and architecture. Don't bring in something that is completely off, unusual, new technology, new language, new tool. Please stay with the existing tradition of the project as much as possible, unless you discuss that and the maintainers are fine with that. Why we as maintainers value that so much? Because we need to support that. You will come with your contribution, then you will go, and we have to maintain that over years. So we are really sensitive to these changes and drastic changes in the architectures. Make sure you document your changes, that your pull request title explains it well, that we can take pull request title and put it into changelog, that you made this feature discoverable, or the change discoverable by the users. I showed you the example before. You improved something, the behavior has changed. Let the users know. Let's make it discoverable through documentation. And if the project has any automated tests, it's on you to cover your functionality and fix broken tests if those will be broken. That's also a must for the project. Please respect maintainers. As I told you, it's very important to be a friend of a maintainer to increase your chance of contributions accepted. Finally, to summarize the contribution tactics, it's really bad idea to contribute many unrelated project changes to many projects. This will not build you a good profile. When I'm looking at some person public GitHub profile, maybe looking for a candidate, or I don't know, I'm seeing what they do and what they did in terms of contributions. And if it's unrelated contributions, something always minor, not interesting, I understand that this is not a strong person. And it's the opposite. If I see the persistency then it's a strong signal that somebody is worth recognizing as a developer. Be consistent, choose the project and work with it, improve it, get the result, and then you will have something to tell about in your next job interview. Be proactive, search the issues, search to do in the code, write the code, experiment with it before reporting or asking questions. If you do a lot of independent individual works, this is what contributes to your learning. This is what improves you, not the project. And you want to improve you because you want to do the career improvement. You need to train your feeling of what is beautiful, what is graceful, and what is clean. Prefer simple over complicated. This is the general advice for the high-tech industry. And finally, easier to ask for excuse than for permission. This is the famous saying. Just go ahead and create draft pull request. GitHub has this feature. With incomplete feature, you just wrote your first line, create draft pull request, and you don't have to explain anything. As a maintainer, I will see it's a draft, but you are already showing me your work. So I can see and track, and I can early review it and say, hey, you are doing it wrong. Please do it this way or that way, so you will not waste your time. If you're doing a lot of work without telling anyone, it's bad. You have a high chance of a failure. Don't do that. Show your code early. Just do it. I see a lot of times people coming and saying, please assign the issue to me. Don't waste your time. Don't ask to assign the issue. Just bring the code. This is your assignment. Your allowance to assign your issue to you is the fact that you brought the code already. It's unbeatable reason. Now, let's speak about non-code contributions. Some of you may be not developers or not willing to pursue the developer career, but you still want to be contributing something, joining the community, and still build your career with the non-code contributions. What can be done there? You can actually work in many different directions. For example, you can work on deployment configs and scripts for various environments in the existing project. You can Dockerize it. You can create Helm chart for Kubernetes manifests, a lot of that. And this is something that may, if you do these kind of contributions consistently, may lead you to the DevOps job. It improves your DevOps skills. You can be consistently testing functionality of the software and reporting the issues. And that is something that teaches you to do a QA job if you really want to start your career from that. You can be proposing meaningful features and being a product manager, basically, for the project, explaining how to turn feedback from users into actual product requirements and features to implement. And that will also progress you through your career without writing any code. And you can improve the processes of the project. You can help with CI, with build configurations, with the processes of release, triage of the issues, some processes in existing and established bigger projects. And this is the project manager role that you can also, without writing much of the code or barely writing the configuration files, but you can think of the problems of the project management, how the project functions as the project. And there's a second set of the things to work on as a non-code contributor. You can be basically solution engineer or support specialist, career style learning, and you do that by becoming an expert in the project usage, and you will be answering user questions, and it's a huge help for the project. And I know people who was doing that for salary, just basically responding to the questions of the community, just because it's a really, really important role. And well, if you will come as support engineer into the company, you can show your profile of answering in the perfect English the questions of the users. You can write documentation for the project. This is, by the way, a really good thing that we, spoilers, show you It's the evidence of what's going on now with Helm Dashboard project. We have a really active guy, and his name is Pushkar. I don't know if I pronounced that correct, but he's doing pull request after pull request, and his pull requests are non-code contributions. He's changing documentation, building something that the project doesn't have. He builds the documentation page of, let me show you that, the documentation page of Helm Dashboard, basically. He makes screenshots, explains in text something about the project, and it goes and it goes. So this is what he works on. This is his contribution, and it's great because he's doing it really persistently. It's not that he did first request, contributed first line of documentation and then went away. No, it's like his third, maybe fourth contribution, and he's really persistent, and I'm willing to help and teach him because I see that he's contributing. So this is the real life evidence of what's going on. You can be writing guides, blog posts, and articles, and this is really valuable for any open source project. When you help project grow by letting people know, this is what Helm Dashboard needs in this stage of its evolution. We need to let people know it exists. It's already good to be used. We can improve it, but this is the job of the code developer contributors. But if you are non-code, but you can just use it and explain others how to use it. You can be talking at meetups and conferences. There's a lot of local meetups happening in every places, smaller conferences. I cannot attend all of them, and I don't want to attend all of them because I want to give you opportunity to speak about the open source projects. Usually talking about open source projects is a huge success. Everyone wants to hear about that because it's for free. Finally, if you are UI, UX, visual designer, you can just create impressive visuals for your lovely open source project. In the past of JMeter plugins, I saw these kind of contributions when somebody was coming and saying, hey, let's create a Christmas website layout just to celebrate the Christmas season. Let's change the logo of the project because it looks not modern. And it's also a way to contribute. So many different roles. You see, the code contributions only lead you to developer role and developer job. But here in these two slides, we have mentioned like 6 different career paths that you can take by doing contributions of a non-code manner. The only thing that Kunal would ask you if you're doing talks in meetups and conferences and blogs and articles is to not compete too much, because you may be the next Kunal arising from these practices. We are almost finished. You learn to contribute. What will be the next? If you became the contributor, where to look next, just to give you an idea of the future development? Well, you can be a maintainer. You can join maintainer group of an existing open source project, and you will be trusted to review other pull requests and decide on how to proceed with the inclusion of features of the product. You can find a project that looks for a new maintainer and adopt that project. And I was doing that in my past with one of Jenkins plugins. I was adopting it for a while, and then I passed the role to other people. You can start your own project, and I hope maybe if we have enough interest on these content, I can have another lecture on how you start your own project, and it will be a bit more advanced guide on starting and maintaining your own open source projects. And I think with that, we can summarize. Do your homework. And now you can go and subscribe to right channels, watch and like videos, read the blogs and ask the questions to people and talk to ChatGPT. It's okay to do that. It's just the way to do open source contributions, not the way, it's not the contributions per se. you still need independent work, patience, and a lot of practice. I strongly recommend you to read this open source guide, How to Contribute, because it gives a lot more context specific on techniques of contributions. And I hope this session was valuable to you. Thank you very much. Join our Slack community if you didn't join it yet, and go and ask questions if you have some in that Slack community about the matters that I described today. Udi, are you still with us?
I am always with you.
Do we have any time to answer the questions?
We're just over time. We had a couple of questions that I answered in writing, because you already mentioned those things about, one was about writing blogs around open source, and the other was, will we get the recording and presentation? And yes and yes.
I think we will. I will not share the presentation. I would ask for excuse about that for my internal reasons, but I think we will share the recording, and recording will have the presentation written into it. So we will share the recording for sure. Okay, so if we are over time, then guys, I really want to address your questions. So Udi, can you create the open source channel in our community, in our Slack community, and post about that in general channel? And then guys, let's be polite and gather there our questions about open source, so I'll be able to answer your questions on the open source topic, and that's my plan. Thank you everyone for joining. I think I hope it will help you.
Yes, and also want to invite everyone to keep the conversation going in the Slack community, even if you don't have questions directly regarding this webinar, but other things, feel free to ask them or initiate your own initiatives. And if you enjoyed this content, share it with your friends, tell other people about the community and about our future events, so we can all grow and learn together.
Yeah, one thing that I would like to hear from these is, do you like this kind of content? Should we continue doing it? Should we speak about some specific topic or not? Because this is my question. Should I proceed with preparing this kind of content, or it's not very demanded?
Yeah, I imagine it is in high demand because it was super insightful and practical, and I personally enjoyed it a lot, and I think I'm not the only one. So thank you so much, Andrei, for sharing your knowledge with everyone today.
Thank you.
And also, today is a big milestone. We crossed 2,000 community members.
Yes.
So congratulations to all of us. And let's keep growing together. See you next time or on Slack. Bye-bye.